Did you know that Assassin's Creed the original was created out of Prince of Persia and was meant to be named Prince of Persia Assassins? Now why and how did this happen that this Prince of Persia game turned into something else and created the most money generating franchise for Ubisoft? Well, in this video we are gonna know the story of how Assassin's Creed was founded. But before that, make sure to like this video and feel free to subscribe to this channel if you want similar type of videos. So it all started with Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time. Ubisoft wanted to make a sequel to that game. As we all know, Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time was pretty popular at that time. Now the developmental team was about to make something similar to that as a sequel, but there were limitations with having the princely figure again. This was happening around 2003 to 2004. Now after a lot of thinking, the creative director, also known as Patrice Désilets, thought of another idea. He actually read about the history of a secret society in his college. Now as I mentioned about the secret society, it let them focus on the order of the assassins based upon the historical Hashashin sect of Ismaili, who were followers of Shia Islam, heavily borrowing from the novel Alamut. Now all these things are actually real historical things, alright? This is not like fictional stuff. A lot of things that we see in Assassin's Creed, a lot of it is fictional, but this stuff, the order of the assassins and this Alamut novel, all of this is actually real. So you guys can check that out if you have free time. The Alamut castle, the Masyaf castle, all these things exist in real life. These are all real things, guys. Obviously Masyaf was there in Assassin's Creed 1, and Alamut castle, if you guys remember in Assassin's Creed Mirage, the one where we trained ourselves in the beginning as Basim, that was the Alamut castle. And in that secret society, there came the idea of the assassins instead of the prince. Now again, at this point, they still wanted to make Prince of Persia that would have an assassin as the main character. So the whole ideation was to name it as Prince of Persia Assassin. Well, you might think, why was the game still called Prince of Persia when the protagonist was an assassin? Well, in this game, we were about to be an assassin that would rescue a Persian prince. Thus, naming was still the same. Now, after a lot of exploration and pre-production time, they completely scrapped the idea of it being a Prince of Persia game. They wanted to create a completely new IP for this game. Now first, they tried to make the game multi-generational, but that plan also got changed, and the game that they designed for PS2 then turned out to be Assassin's Creed Bloodlines. Now if you guys don't know about this game was released for PSP. It was about to be made for PlayStation 2, but instead of that it was launched on PSP. And in this game as well, there was Altair, the protagonist, which we are gonna see in Assassin's Creed the original as well. Now meanwhile all this happening, Ubisoft was also working on a new Assassin's Creed game for the next gen consoles at that time and the PC. Now we all know that Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time was a linear game, and you could say console at the time that were PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox had a lot of limitations regarding the density of population you could have in a game. So the linear formula was more suitable at that time for those gen consoles. But now that they were making the game for the then next gen, obviously PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 hardwares, it could broaden the horizon and they could play with many more new things, because the upgraded hardwares in these new consoles were a very big jump over the last console generation. So now they wanted an open world game. Now when they were in the exploration period, they realized that newer gen hardware at that time were pretty good in terms of vastness. They created multiple locations, as we have seen already in the original Assassin's Creed game. Now throughout this, the team also faced some difficulties because obviously this was all a pretty new territory. They were first thinking of implementing a multiplayer mode in the game as well, but later figured out it wouldn't work. Now next they had to work on the story. As I mentioned, they removed the part of the prince. Now they need to have some other sort of conflict in the game that will create the story interesting. Without any conflict, the game is not gonna be interesting, right? They thought of a story in which there's gonna be two sides that are gonna have a cultural clash, and none of them will be heroes and villains. Quite funny how now the assassins are seen to be the heroes, despite the fact that the original idea was to not make any side hero or villain. Now as I mentioned before, they already had the assassin theme in mind. Now they had to select a setting, and they decided on the Third Crusade, which was the perfect conflict to portray. Now they also wanted to have large crowds in the game, And the reason is pretty simple, that the newer gen hardware at that time allowed it. Because of the crowd also arise the idea of social stealth that we see in recent Assassin's Creed games as well. It has been since the day it was launched and it's still there. Social stealth plays a very big part in Assassin's Creed games. I would say that it is one of the core features of the franchise. Also, a lot of focus was put on the player freedom because obviously it is an open world game. This was something that was really new to them, thus very exciting. Now, because they had freedom in mind, they also gave us the parkour feature that can make the game even more open. A lot of the stuff was also taken from Splinter Cell because it was also a stealth game and it was really successful, as we all know. So they had a pretty good inspiration. Because of the time period and setting, they also started heavily focusing on the historical stuff that can enhance the overall story of the game. Obviously, they were not able to completely replicate the real historical events, but tried to make it closer to those events as much as possible and also believable at the same time. It is kind of a mixture of artistic freedom as well as the history of the game, right? At the end, it is still a game and you could not do everything that was in real life. A lot of people actually didn't know about the modern day storyline as Ubisoft kept it as a secret. Some people liked and some got disappointed. I'm one of them that liked it. The game ultimately faced some criticisms when it was released, like repetitive missions and other limitations. For example, the parkour in Assassin's Creed 1 is pretty sluggish and can be weird to make use of it. A lot of weird glitches that happen with the parkour. But overall, despite all the criticisms, the game set a new standard, and as we know, it was a start to a new era which we still see to this day. Assassin's Creed was formed, and the first game also had a pretty good success, and that created the structure on which the other Assassin's Creed game grew. It was a perfect launch in my opinion. It could have been better, it could have been not that good, but it is still something that is remarkable as the first game of the franchise. Obviously, a lot of things got improved in the future, and we saw Assassin's Creed 2, which was like the best sequel to any game. I would go as far as to say that that was the biggest jump in any sequel in any game. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to like this video and feel free to subscribe to this channel if you want similar type of content, and I'll see you guys in the next one.